The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, a WealthWorks summary. Introduction, the book that changes how you think about money. Most books about money teach you what to do with it. This one teaches you why you do what you do with it and why that matters more. The Psychology of Money, written by Morgan Housel and published in 2020, has sold over 4 million copies. It is not a book about spreadsheets or stock picks. It is a book about behavior, about the stories we tell ourselves, about the invisible forces that shape every financial decision we make, often without our awareness. Housel's central argument is simple but profound. Doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are. It has everything to do with how you behave. And behavior is hard to teach in a classroom, but learnable through understanding. This summary covers the 19 most powerful lessons in the book, what they mean, why they matter, and what to actually do with them. Chapter 1. No one is crazy. The first thing Housel wants you to understand is this. Everyone's relationship with money makes sense to them, given where they came from. A person who grew up during the Great Depression treats cash differently from someone who grew up in the economic boom of the 1990s. A person who watched their parents lose everything in a market crash will never fully trust the stock market, no matter what the data says. A person who grew up wealthy may take risks that seem reckless to someone who grew up with nothing. None of these people are wrong. They are all rational, given their personal histories. The lesson here is not that all financial decisions are equally good. Some are clearly better than others. The lesson is that before you judge someone's money choices, including your own, you have to understand the experiences that formed them. Your financial behavior is a product of the world you were born into and the things you lived through. So is everyone else's. When you understand this, two things happen. You become more patient with others, and you become more honest with yourself about why you make the choices you do. The action? Spend 5 minutes writing down the first money memory you have. What did it teach you? Is that lesson still serving you, or is it holding you back? Chapter 2. Luck and Risk. Housel asks a difficult question: how much of financial success is skill, and how much is luck? His answer is uncomfortable, more than most people want to admit. He uses the example of Bill Gates. Gates was brilliant, hardworking, and visionary. He also happened to attend one of the only high schools in the world that had a computer in 1968. Without that piece of luck, the story of Microsoft may never have been written. This is not an argument against effort. Effort matters enormously, but so does the world you are born into, the timing of your opportunities, and the risks that happen to spare you. The practical implication is this. When you look at financial success, your own or others, be careful about the conclusions you draw. The person who made a fortune in crypto in 2020 was not necessarily smarter than you. The person who went bankrupt in 2008 was not necessarily more reckless than you. Luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. Humility about your successes and compassion about your failures, and those of others, are the marks of financial wisdom. The action? Think of one financial win in your life. How much was skill? How much was timing, circumstance, or luck? Being honest here doesn't diminish the win. It sharpens your judgment going forward. Chapter 3. Never enough. There is a disease that afflicts many wealthy people and most people who are trying to become wealthy. Housel calls it the inability to know when enough is enough. He tells the story of two writers, Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller, at a party hosted by a hedge fund billionaire. Vonnegut points out that their host made more money in a single day than Heller ever earned from Catch-22. Heller's response? Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough. The goalposts keep moving. You earn $50,000 and want $100,000. You earn $100,000 and want $250,000. You hit $1 million and want 10. The number is always just out of reach because the number was never the real point. The most dangerous financial trap is not poverty. It is the relentless pursuit of more, because more can lead you to take risks you have no business taking, to compare yourself to people whose lives you don't actually want, and to sacrifice things that money can't replace. The lesson: define what enough looks like for you before you start. Not as a ceiling, but as an anchor. Knowing you're enough is not settling, it is sanity. The action: write down 3 things money cannot buy that you already have. Then write the number, actual income or savings, that would genuinely let you feel financially secure. Anchoring to a real number changes how you pursue wealth. Chapter 4: Compounding. This chapter contains what Housel calls the most counterintuitive fact in finance. Warren Buffett is worth approximately $100 billion. Of that, $84 billion was accumulated after his 65th birthday. He started investing at age 10 and has been doing it for over 80 years. His secret is not a superior investment strategy. His secret is time. Compounding is the process by which returns generate their own returns. A 10% return on $1,000 gives you $100. A 10% return on $1,100 gives you 110. The numbers grow slowly at first and then explosively, but only if you give them enough time. The problem is that compounding is deeply unnatural to the human mind. We think linearly. We want results now. The investor who earns 12% for 20 years is likely to outperform the investor who earns 16% for 10 years. Not because of the returns, but because of the time. The action: if you haven't started investing, start today. Not when you have more money, not when you understand more. Time is the variable that matters most, and every month of delay costs you compounding that you can never get back. Chapter 5: Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. Housel draws a line that very few financial books bother to draw. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are completely different skills. Getting wealthy requires risk, optimism, and taking bold action. Staying wealthy requires the opposite: humility, caution, and the awareness that what built your wealth could also take it away. The majority of people who lose fortunes are not stupid. They simply made the same bet that worked before, at higher stakes, at worse timing, with more borrowed money, and ran out of runway. Survival is the foundation of all long-term financial success. If you can stay in the game, you give compounding time to work. If you blow up, you start from zero. The action: for every financial risk you take, ask yourself, if this goes wrong, can I survive it? If the answer is no, the position is too large. Reduce it until failure becomes survivable. Chapter 6: You'll change. One of the most overlooked financial risks is the person you will become. Housel calls this the end of history illusion. Research shows that people consistently underestimate how much they will change in the future, even though they readily acknowledge how much they've changed in the past. The person you are at 25 has very different financial values from the person you will be at 45. The investments and lifestyle choices that make sense now may feel wrong in a decade. The career you've built your financial plan around may no longer interest you. This has a practical implication. Avoid financial decisions that lock you in too tightly. Be careful about commitments based on a life plan that your future self may not want. The action: design financial flexibility into your plan. An emergency fund isn't just for emergencies. It's for the version of you that wants to change course. Give that person room to move. Chapter 7: Freedom. Here Housel makes his most important claim, the one that the whole book is really building toward. The highest form of wealth is not a large account balance. It is the ability to wake up in the morning and do whatever you want. Not luxury, not status, not possessions. Control over your time. The research backs this up. Beyond a certain income level, more money does not significantly increase day-to-day happiness. What does increase happiness is control over your schedule, your work, your relationships, your pace. The action, rate your current financial situation not by the number in your account, but by how much control it gives you over your time. What would it take, specifically, to have one more hour of autonomy per day? Start there. Chapter 8, Man in the Car Paradox. When people see someone driving a nice car, they don't think about the driver. They imagine themselves in the car. They project their own desires onto what they're seeing. The person driving the expensive car wants you to admire them, but you're admiring the car. Wealth signaled through consumption is wealth consumed. The truly wealthy person is not the one with the most visible possessions. It is the person whose wealth is invisible because it has been saved and invested rather than spent. The action, before your next large purchase, ask honestly, am I buying this for myself or to signal something to someone else? There is no wrong answer, but the honest answer changes the decision. Chapter 9. Wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is not income. It is not a house. It is not a car. It is what remains after spending. A person earning $300,000 a year and spending $295,000 is less wealthy than a person earning $80,000 and spending $50,000. The first person looks rich. The second person is building wealth. The single most powerful wealth-building behavior is not finding a better investment. It is spending less than you earn consistently over time. The action, calculate your actual savings rate this month. Income minus expenses divided by income. If it's below 20%, find one recurring expense to eliminate or reduce. Chapter 10. Saving. You can build wealth without a high income. You cannot build wealth without a savings habit. Savings is not about being cheap. It is about creating options. Without savings, you cannot invest. You cannot weather a job loss. You cannot take a career risk. You cannot say no to work you hate. Savings is the fuel that makes every other financial move possible. The action, automate your savings. Set up a transfer the day after every paycheck that moves a fixed amount into savings before you can spend it. The best savings habit is the one that doesn't require willpower. Chapter 11. Reasonable beats rational. There is a difference between the mathematically optimal financial decision and the decision you can actually live with. A financial plan that is theoretically perfect but psychologically impossible will fail. A plan that is slightly suboptimal, but one you can sustain for 30 years will succeed. Being reasonable is more powerful than being rational. The action. Review your financial plan through the lens of your own psychology. What part of it will you actually struggle to maintain? Adjust that part, not to be lazy, but to be honest. Chapter 12. Surprise. Every decade brings financial events that no one predicted, and those events reshape everything. Your financial plan should not assume the future will look like the past. It should be built to survive surprises you cannot foresee. This means holding more cash than feels necessary, diversifying more than feels efficient, being less confident in predictions than feels comfortable. The action, ask yourself, if something genuinely unexpected happened to the economy in the next 12 months, something you cannot predict, would your financial position survive it? If not, what is one thing you can do this month to improve that resilience? Chapter 13. Room for error. Always build a margin of safety into your financial life. The bridge that holds 10 tons is built to hold 30. The financial plan that requires everything to go right is not a plan. It is a gamble. Room for error means keeping more cash than you think you need. Less debt than your income technically allows. Not concentrating all of your risk in one place. This is not pessimism, it is engineering. The action. Where in your financial life do you have no room for error? Identify that vulnerability and begin to address it, even slowly. Chapter 14. You and Me. Markets are made up of people with different goals, different time horizons, and different definitions of success. A day trader and a long-term retirement investor are both looking at the same asset, but they are playing completely different games. What looks like a good decision for one is a terrible decision for the other. Know what game you're playing. Make decisions that make sense for that game. Ignore advice that applies to a different one. The action. Write down your actual investment time horizon, then identify the last 3 financial decisions you made. Were they consistent with that horizon, or were they reactions to short-term noise? Chapter 15. The Seduction of Pessimism. Pessimism sounds smart. Optimism sounds naive. This is a problem because over the long arc of history, optimism has been correct. Bad news travels faster and carries more emotional weight than good news. As a result, we are systematically biased toward believing the future will be worse than it turns out to be. This is not an argument for ignoring risk. It is an argument for calibrating your pessimism. The action? Think of one financial decision you have been avoiding because of a vague fear that things will get worse. What does the historical data actually say about that type of decision over a long time horizon? Chapter 16. When You'll Believe Anything. Stories are more powerful than statistics. Always. The narrative we tell about the economy, the market, or our own financial situation shapes our behavior more than the underlying data. In good times, we construct stories that justify risk. In bad times, we construct stories that justify paralysis. Be suspicious of the financial story you are telling yourself right now. It is probably more influenced by your recent emotional experience than by objective reality. The action. Write down the story you currently tell yourself about money and your financial future. Where did this story come from? Is it based on evidence or on experience? And are those the same?